Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Sarada. On today's tutorial we are going to be learning how to make this beautiful dress. So if that's something you're interested in, come with me and let's get started. Also, do not forget to like, subscribe and leave a comment down below. Thank you. Over here I have my pattern, I have my fabric which is Ankara, and I have my lining. I'm going to be using the pattern that I have for my basic body. You can go and check that out, it's up on the channel. So I'm just going to be making little tweaks to this because I was just going to go ahead to use it. I didn't want it to go to waste. So the first thing I'm going to do is adjust the neckline, which for me right now is 6. So I have the front and the back pattern placed together, right? The wideness is still going to be 3.5, but the length of it, the breadth of it, is going to end up being 6, right? Because we need it really wide. And then I'm going to focus on the length of it because this is like a top and a skirt put together. Speaking of top and skirts, we are going to be focusing first on the top part of this on this tutorial, and then on the next tutorial we are going to be focusing on the lower part of it, which is the skirt part. So here I decided to open my dart first because I needed to make sure that everything was correct and in line, right? So I went ahead to add 1 more inch because I needed a dart of 1 inch at the bust area, right? So I went down here by 1 inch. If you're using a 2 inches dart on the bust area, you can go ahead and go lower like 2 inches. For instance, I did 18 here, which is 1 inch. You can do 19, which is basically 2 inches, right? And for the back area we already have 17 as the length line, so I just went ahead to cut that out. Now that we have this tweaked, for the back area I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to have any bulge at the zip area, so I went ahead to go in from the zipper line by 1/2 inch. I already went in on the first line by 1/2 inch. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you should watch the how to draft a basic body pattern and you'll see that I already adjusted some things on that very tutorial. So here I'm just going in with my main measurements to see if everything fits right or if I have to still adjust the dart where it is. I did all this and everything turned out just fine. The only thing that I needed to adjust here was to go up by 1/2 inch and then draw a slant line. What this does is it also helps with the zip bulge, if you get what I mean. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out since all the things are actually in line and in place where they're supposed to be. Now that I have both patterns adjusted, I'm going to go ahead to transfer onto my fabric. I would advise that if you want your work to turn out nice, don't add any sewing allowances if you already have your sewing allowances on your pattern paper. The only place I added a sewing allowance, as you can see here, is at the shoulder area, which I added like 1/2 inch, but the other parts I did not add any sewing allowance whatsoever. What I'm doing here is just going ahead to notch my darts. As you can see, for the front my darts are not straight, so I went ahead on the apex line, went out on both sides by 1/2 inch so I could have a straight dart, and then I went in with my straight roll, ruled the line so I know what I'm doing, and then I also went ahead to notch that with my scissors. I will also do the same for the back. This is just so you know where your dart is ending, even if you go ahead to transfer it onto your lining piece. Now we're going to concentrate on cutting the off shoulder part of this. From the shoulder slope over here, I'm going to go down by 5 inches. Remember, the shoulder slope area, not the shoulder area itself. I went down by 5 and I'll just go ahead to connect it to the neckline of both the front and the back, because remember we are cutting like as though this isn't a fold, right? Okay, and then I'll just to make sure that everything sits tight and nothing is hanging out anywhere, I'm going to go in by 1 inch, right? And what this does is basically acts as a dart. It actually tightens that place in. So I'm just going to go ahead with my French curve to create a new armhole curve on that part, but you want to make sure that your front and back pattern are together. The reason why I'm using this pattern is because I didn't want it to go to waste. So you can go ahead and draft yours on a fold and then do the necessary adjustments on one side of it. Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead now and cut this out, cut this open, make sure it's everything is seated right before I go ahead to cut, as you can see right now. After I go ahead to cut that, I'm going to go ahead to transfer what I just cut on the fabric area. Don't forget to open your zipper, like I beg you. So I went ahead, I placed my pattern on the table, as you can see right now, and then I chose the part that I wanted the off shoulder part to be at. Maybe you want it on the left hand side or on the right hand side, you would decide. But after I decided, I went ahead to place my pattern and then use it to just cut it. I'm going to be using the back first to cut, and then I'll use the front to adjust the front area if there's any need for adjustments. Now I've gone ahead to pin my fabric down, and I'm just going to go ahead to cut it, both of them together, just like this. The same thing with the armhole, and then I'll go ahead afterwards and use the front pattern to adjust anything that needs adjusting on the front armhole line or length line, just like this. And you can see it's just one tiny thing that needs to be adjusted on the front, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. After we do this, it is time to put the clothes together. So before we go ahead to put the clothes together, first we have to cut out a strap for the off shoulder part. What I'm doing here is just marking out my sewing allowance, which is 1.5 inch, and then I'll place the back, which is the other side of it, onto that line that I just marked out. I'm going to measure from one edge of the armhole to the other edge of the armhole, and whatever you have, you add 1 inch or 1.5 inch. So for instance, I have 9.5. I went ahead to add 10 inches to this. So for the wideness of the strap, I just went in by 3. I didn't want it to be too big or too small. I just wanted it to be perfect where it was, right? And then I went in, like I said, with 1 inch or 1.5 inch for yours. And then after I did that, I marked out what I needed to mark out and used my ruler, so I know that okay, this is actually where it stops and where it starts. And then I'll use my scissors to cut it out. I'm going to go ahead to my sewing machine to close this part so it looks very neat. And the next thing I'm going to do now is go ahead to transfer all this onto my lining piece. I've gone ahead to close this now, and I'll just place it on at the edge of the front armhole first. I'm going to use my pins to pin this down, first at the edge of the armhole and then second on the body. And the reason why I'm doing this is because when I go ahead to sew, I do not want it to move anyhow. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin it down there, and then I'll place my lining piece on and sew as you saw me translate with my hands. Yes, I will just go ahead and sew around, but I'll leave the bottom part and the shoulder part open. I'll do the same for the other side, and for this part I will only be sewing the way you see me do, on the upper part on the sides, but I will not be sewing the armhole and the lower part. And this is the reason why. I'm going to do this first, turn this around, and this is what we have right now before I go ahead to iron anything out, right? I'll turn everything out, and then I'll go ahead to show you what I need to do next, what we all need to do next. I'll go ahead to turn, you know, the part where we have the off shoulder part, right? You turn it in, and then you take your strap and pass it through, take it to the armhole of the back side, and then go ahead to close it. This is really simple to do if you pay attention and if you just know what you're doing, or you don't know what you're doing but you pay attention. This is really simple to do, and this is what we have after everything. I actually went ahead to iron and make sure that all the pieces are flat before I continued. The next thing we're going to do is transfer our darts. I always say this: the back dart is 1 inch upper from your bust area. For instance, I'll use myself for instance. I am bust 11, right? So from shoulder to bust is 11. For the back side, you're going to be going up by 1 inch. For the front side, you're going to be going down by 1 inch. This is a very simple way to remember, just in case you don't like really understand the whole calculation going on right now. The best you can do for yourself is just know that the front area goes down by 1 inch and the back area goes up by 1 inch. This is just in case, again, you are using free hand to do what you need to do. Before I now go ahead to close the darts, I'm going to go ahead to first close the shoulder. So I'm going to pick the front and then pick the back and just turn this in as you see me do it. And after doing that, I'll go ahead to close the shoulder area by just 1/4 inch because I don't want it to be too tight on my shoulder. And this is what it looks like. It is very neat and it has disappeared, instead of you to do it the natural way you thought it was going to be done. After doing that, I'll close my dart and then close the sides by the sewing allowance that I left for it. And for the collar area, I wanted something really smooth and really simple and that sat right with me. So from the dart area, I went out by 2.5 inch. By 2.5 inch. And then what I'm doing here is just tracing that 2.5 inch all the way to the top. This is what I feel comfortable with. Another thing you need to know is the collar should not go into your zipper allowance. So you want to make sure that it is seated at a place where it's comfortable, not just for you but for the collar to sit. Let's go ahead and cut the collar area for this. So for the smaller one, I'm going to be doing the wideness of 10 and the length of 16. I'm going to repeat myself: wideness of 10, that's how wide it should be, and the length is going to be 16 for the small one, right? I'm going to put all this together now with my straight rule, and then we'll go ahead to do the other necessary thing around here. What you want to do now is go ahead and mark out 5 inches from the 10 inches that you went up by. So basically you're just dividing it by 2, and I'm going to rule a straight line across. The line I have here is of 9 inches, and I'm just going to use my curved rule to make a curve from that 9 inches all the way to the end of the pattern. So this is what we have for the smaller one. And for the bigger collar, I went out, you know, the last one was 16, so I did like 3 inches extra and got 19, right? And then I'm just going to go ahead like I did from the beginning, make a box and see where that takes me. For the length, I did 1 inch extra. So the first one was 10, this is 11, right? I'm just going to make lines across like I did for the first one also, of course, and then I'll do the other necessary things. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm just going to cancel out that other line. That was horrible. And then I'll come down here by 9 inches, right? Like I said, divide said number into 2. So for me here, I have 11. Divide 11 into 2, and I got this midline right here. Do my line and then use my French curve to make it curve. This is simpler and easier than using your hand and getting a crooked line. So I would advise that you use your tools to make sure your work comes out really neat. And then just go ahead to cut the way I cut. So this is what I have for the pattern. I actually went on to my fabric. This is a crepe fabric. You don't have to use a crepe fabric, you can use other fabrics, but this is a crepe fabric. I did not add half an inch at the top because I did not want it, like I said, to extend into the zipper area. That's why I did not extend the half-inch sewing allowance to the top part of this. I'm going to go to my machine to close this now. Top curve side, that's what I'm going to do, and this is what it looks like after I was done closing it. Now it's time to place it onto the top part of this. Okay, so I already went ahead to mark this out. For the colors, this is the bigger one and that is the smaller one. On the part that we've marked, I'm going to make sure that this color sits on that part that we've marked, and I'm going to be making sure also that the bigger color goes towards the off shoulder area and the smaller color goes towards the relaxed shoulder area. So I'm going to go ahead to pin this down because, like I always say, pinning is your best friend. And like I said, make sure that this is not going into your zipper area. For the other one, before we go ahead to pin, make sure also that it is sitting at the top of that area where you started the other one from, and then sew, and after which you go ahead to top stitch, because that's what's going to seal the deal of making sure it is flat. And this is what it looks like in the front, and this is what it looks like at the back area. I've not put zip in this, I just used the pins to hold it down so it will give the illusion of the zip being there. But yeah, this is what I have. I hope you get to try this out for yourself. I hope you love the process of making yours as much as I have enjoyed the process of making mine. With that being said, y'all, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Don't forget to turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified when I post a new video. Don't forget to love yourself because I love you. Have a beautiful day or night, whichever it is you live for. Bye.